Good evening. Welcome to the Brewgooders, episode 199. Beer, comics, and assorted geekery. I'm Jeff. I'm bringing the beer. To my right is Andrew, who's not bringing comics this week, but
Happy New Year.
and below us is Happy New Year. And below us is our assorted geek.
Straight vodka tonight.
John Bruce.
Hello there.
Hello there. How are you guys doing? Happy New Year.
Yep. Happy New Year. Yep. Good, yeah.
We're warming up. We'll be back.
Another New Year.
What's happy about it? What's that? Is that what's the good morning? What's good about it? Is that Hitchhikers?
It's this arbitrary, the Earth has successfully completed another rotation around the sun from the very arbitrary starting point that was established 2,000 years ago. Here we are.
Okay, good tone to set. That's a good tone right there.
Days off work, though. Days off work. Yeah.
Not for me.
I've been
back at work already.
Oh no! Did you not feel that this week in particular it just feels really strange? You go back to your work on a Wednesday and it feels like a Monday, and it's like it's Thursday today, and I'm like, I've only got one more day to go, and then it's the weekend again, and you're like, what's happening? It's just been horrible. You don't know when to eat cheese and when not to eat cheese. So I've just been eating cheese
whenever. Yeah.
You never know when the football's going to be on, and what time I'm supposed to get up. It's just it's a confusing time of year.
Yeah. I think you'd say there's very arbitrary confines in that, and ultimately life is meaningless. So we're all just clinging to a dying rock as it hurls uncontrollably through space, like maggots in a dead dog that some wee boy threw in the Waltzers.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Remember that you're standing on a planet that's revolving at 900 miles an hour. As Monty Python would have had it.
Andrew for our existential podcast that we're doing next week. So.
That's good. We're doing that. The Brewniverse. Life, the Brewniverse, and everything. That's going to be one of our many spin-offs.
The Brewniverse.
I actually was watching a show yesterday. They were asking a boy about whether or not he was going to university, and he was like, when you think about it, the universe is a university.
Yeah.
New show by Mike Shure. I just found it last night, and Mike Shure's never done anything bad in his entire life. So,
cool.
Anyway, what are we up to today?
What are we up to today? We are going to very soon bring on our guest this week, who's Jowett, who is we've just had him in the chatting with us before, and I will be doing an introduction on what he does, but ultimately it's what he doesn't do, which is going to be the interesting part of the conversation, I think. To quote him a couple of minutes ago, he is like the most I can't even quote him now. He said something about being like the most established writer you've never heard of. So yeah, interesting. But he works. He's manager of Shades of Vengeance, which is a comics, games, and an RPG company. So I'm really excited to get him on and learn about that. And then also we're just going to be chatting about our usual sort of geekery stuff. I don't know. I really want to talk to folk about Saltburn. Have you guys seen Saltburn yet?
No.
It doesn't I've heard so much about it that it just doesn't appeal to me. Movies that make you feel uncomfortable have never been my bag. And I just, I didn't watch.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it out.
I watched it.
Sorry, you watched it?
I watched it yesterday, and it's a bit like it's a talented Mr. Ripley mixed with a wee bit of Parasite, mixed with with the soundtrack of my university years. So it was good fun. So it was all set in 2006. So it was quite interesting to the whole soundtrack was music I listened to, Florence and the Machine and MGMT and all that sort of stuff. It was very cool. But if you've not seen it, never mind.
By 2006, I'd already bought every album I was ever going to buy. It's just like that's what happens. You get to a certain age, and it's like that's it. No new music for me. once you get past a certain age. You'll get there, man. You'll get there. Once you turn, I think it's 35, I think, is usually the cut-off.
That's true, actually. Yeah, I haven't bought an album in years. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I say there is no new albums.
Right. So we will get to our sort of geekery stuff. We won't talk about Saltburn because no one else watched it. But obviously, we had Doctor Who and shit to talk about, so we bring on and then we'll chat about all our stuff that's coming up this month on our podcast channel and stuff in the wee while as well. But we'll bring on Ed and let him chat to us about all his exciting stuff. So thanks again for Ed for accepting my request for my invitation. 199 episodes, you think about better this. Okay, so Ed represents Shades of Vengeance, a UK-based company which creates tabletop role-playing games and card games, and they also create comics. We were very fortunate to get a wee sneak peek at some of their stuff, and I will be putting screenshots on as Ed speaks to us. But just a really good comics organization that are creating some really exciting stories. But Ed will do more talking about that than I ever could because he's a really fantastically interesting guy. So without further ado, here's Ed. Sorry, that was a shit introduction, Ed.
Hello, everybody. No. Thanks so much for having me on. You know, I've not spoken to you guys before, and you know, I saw your invite, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do the thing. I'm here to tell stories.
And now you're
Let's tell some stories.
So please tell us. So Shades of Vengeance.
Yeah, so Shades of Vengeance. It started as a tabletop role-playing game company. That's where I began. I began as I am a hopeless sci-fi geek. Never going to outgrow that ever. Or is that even possible? I don't know. I'm not sure. I started by wanting to run some role-playing games on my own system. Sort of built my own world around that, and gradually built up a title called Era the Consortium, which offers 500 years of playable history. The idea being, and you know, I wanted to come into the RPG space with or my first production, I guess, as offering something that maybe other people don't. And the idea behind this 500 years is you can dip in where you want to in the history to play any subgenre of sci-fi that I, as a lifelong sci-fi geek, could think of. So, you know, you want to play colonizing a new planet. You know, you crash land on the planet, colonize it. You start at the start. You know, you want to play, I don't know, Star Trek. You want to go around, explore planets, and encounter alien races. You play a little later. You want to do Starship Troopers. There's a giant bug war where you're fighting these insectoid aliens. You go in there, and so on and so on and so on. You know, cyberpunk or alien artifacts or mad science, or you name it, any type of sci-fi that I could come up with. I came up with 42 subgenres, which amused me no end, to be completely honest.
Do you know that's it's an astonishing idea. I'm not going to say I've done something anywhere similar, but I used to run a game at my shop, and what I did was I used the 5e rules and loosely based it around Genevieve Cogman's Invisible Library.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I have.
Yeah, so I basically, because it's a parallel world thing, there's you can go anywhere from cyberpunk at one end to medieval fantasy at the other end, and my players loved the idea of that. Some of their skills would be working one end of the spectrum, and some of them would work, and I just felt like the universe that was there was so vast.
So I
had no idea that somebody had already come up with something.
I love that idea. The thing was, so my first exposure to this was GURPS, perhaps like many.
Steve Jackson, was it?
I always felt that GURPS failed to deliver it. I think there are some problems with the system because it tries to do everything.
Yes.
It doesn't ever quite deliver anything. That's just my personal opinion. I have, for the record, for anyone watching, anyone who likes GURPS, nothing against GURPS, it's just not for me. So what I did instead is, as I began to grow my scope, I began to do different kinds of universes. And what I'd do is, instead of using exactly the same rule set, I would make modular changes. So I built a low fantasy storytelling game that's a bit like Baron Munchausen, if you know that game, or Braggart, the card game. But you work as a team, and you tell stories of your amazing adventures that totally did happen, 100%. And you try and hoodwink the crowd into giving you the golden glory that an adventure would have. And then I went for something that's maybe a bit more mainstream. I went for a superhero role-playing game, and I sort of removed a lot of the sci-fi elements, and I stuck in the bits that make sense for a superhero game. I solved the superhero problem within my rule set. So the core paradigm remains the same, while then the weapons have slightly different stats depending on which game you're in. You have different armor or shielding capabilities. For sci-fi, obviously, you have shielding, but for a zombie apocalypse game, you want the weapons to be really, really lethal. So you bring down it's a D10 dice pool system. So you bring down the threshold you have to roll to damage or kill someone in the survival horror, and so on and so on and so on. I'm actually 14 games in at this point. So Era of the Consortium now has 18 expansions. There are 12 expansions for the survival horror one as well, and assorted expansions here and there. I look around and I find a genre that I like and I want to tell a story in.
Yeah.
And I will often create a role-playing game, or I'll create a card game, or a comic, or an audio drama, or write a novel, or I made a movie. It's sort of just a love of expressing universes and telling stories that's led me to go, oh, I could do this. I could try that, and most of the universes I've created have comics in, which is absolutely fantastic fun. I love writing comics. It's a really different way of telling a story, but it's almost the antithesis of doing a role-playing game. Not in the sense that you can, obviously you can write a good story in both, but what you're actually going for is this closed, tight story that's going to appeal in just a few pages to the reader. Whereas with a role-playing game session, when you've got someone sat down, you've got 4 hours, you can do more of a slow build-up. You're building, you're throwing in little details here and there, little Easter eggs here and there for them to realize towards the end of the session, I think.
Yeah, I think the difference, obviously, I own the comic shop and played board games and played role-play games. With a comic, it has to be really tight. It has to be 24 pages, the full stories there and things like this. Whereas if you're DMing any sort of game, you'd never know what your players are going to do. So it has to be very broad strokes. This is the environment. You can't. I know DMs who will try and structure everything, and
you get very railroaded.
As soon as you get through that door, this is what happens next, and then the players come along and go, "Why don't we go around the house?" and they get caught in the huff. So you have to write these things very broadly, to allow for the nonsense that players are going to come up with. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to a convention in just about 2 weeks' time. Shout out for Contingency, which is my favorite convention of the year. It's absolutely brilliant. I really, really enjoy it. And it's literally 5 days of playing role-playing games, 3-4 hour sessions a day, every day.
Yeah.
You just spend the week there and play role-playing games. And I adore the opportunity to run some multi-table games where interactions occur between what's going on. It gives, as a creator and a storyteller, it gives me the opportunity to just extend that scope beyond anything you can do at a single table. In real time, people are going, those guys over there just completely screwed you over because they did this thing to make their lives easier. It's brilliant fun to sort of put together a scenario for that and go ahead and just deliver it to people. And, having 18, 20, even 25 people sitting down at a bunch of different tables and playing my game is something that really, it feels amazing, to see that story get executed. And I have a team of GMs that work with me. I'm also a GM, but the other GMs, they do a brilliant job of delivering the story that I've sort of crafted to deliver some suspense and some fun, and then let everyone do their own thing a little bit, give space to introduce their style, because every DM is slightly different, right?
I mean, it sounds awesome. Like, I know how. I understand why you would want to have more than one DM. I know try to corral more than 4 or 5 players at a time. I had a hard and fast rule.
I have run a
DM
game with
more than
11 players.
I
don't
never
recommend it.
because most players, the be all and end all of them is 5th edition, and it's DM and stuff like that. The more players you have, as soon as you get into a combat situation, it grinds to a halt. It's completely flawless. That's why I like systems where the combat system is very fluid and quick, because that's the worst part about RPGs.
I've literally just been thinking about this problem just in the last couple of days, because I want to do a Dark Souls inspired game, my own universe and so on. It's not going to be a license.
Very combat heavy though.
But I want to make it so that the combat is smoother.
Yeah.
Right, and I've got some ideas that I don't think I've seen them applied in role-playing games before. I've got some ideas around the way in which you declare your action to make it quicker, right? Because I have enjoyed Dark Souls very much. I've played all the games. I play a lot of different games, and I love a broad scope, but I was just playing yesterday, and what I was doing was I was striking and then rolling away and then drinking an Estus potion because I got hit because I suck, and then rolling, running back in and striking again. It's sort of, you got to have that feel for people in a space of time that you can deliver in a tabletop role-playing game, which is a really interesting problem to solve because people are slow. They're thinking too much in combat about exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's not even
you
just
can lean into that for some games. You can make it so that narrating the combat in a certain way. I've recently delivered a game called Era Friction, where you're an action hero, right? So like a 80s, 90s action hero, and you have to sort of narrate your combat in your style to get extra bonuses and extra abilities.
That's very cool.
And that you can lean into the combat taking a bit longer, and no one minds because you're doing sort of very, very, I'd say, content-rich combat. But if all you're doing is just rolling a d20, oh I missed, rolling a d20, oh I missed. I played a 5th edition rules game of Living Arcanus back in October at a convention. And my wizardy sorcery character, I'm not quite sure what they call it in Living Arcanus. I don't think wizard or sorcerer is actually a thing in that. But I was the only one who could hit anything. They were all just rolling misses the whole time.
Yeah,
and I was sat there with magic missile just pelting everything.
Like I said, I think this is a problem not just with RPGs but with tabletops as well. Like I used to see people coming in and playing, Warhammer and things like this, and spending 4 hours on 3 rounds of combat and nobody gets into it and stuff like this. And the more characters you've got, the way I DM'd, I tried to keep combat to a minimum because I didn't like a game being bogged down, and I hated players breaking character. I hated them saying my character does this. I was like, no, you just have to talk as it, put on the accent and say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and blah blah blah. It has to be immersive, or it just doesn't work for me.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I'm quite happy with that. Again, I've built a system that works for me, which probably doesn't surprise anyone listening. I'm quite happy with the combat in general. It can drag, but I've put a lot of thought into how to make it flow a bit better. There are instant kill thresholds, so you can kill all the mooks off, but the larger enemies can be immune to that. You've got things that you can do. You can feel powerful or you can feel weak, and you can tune it quite easily in the moment, depending on how scared you want your players to be, which makes combat just another tool for telling the story rather than being... one of my players in a very early playtest, he wasn't experienced in role-playing games at the time, became phenomenally experienced over the years I've known him. He said, to me, combat always feels like a punishment. It feels like I failed to negotiate, I failed to sneak, I failed to, I failed to, do the tech thing, so now I have to be in combat because that was That's how it is.
Properly played roleplay, I would say exactly the same. If you can avoid combat and do anything else, the game keeps going smoother. If you've got a player who is hell bent on, charging in sword and stuff like that to everything or something like that, it's just like that's just not. It's not going to be. It's no fun for me to GM, and it's no fun to play either. So
it can get very grating if all you're doing all the time is combat. And one of the problems I think. Sorry, we're back to the existential thing. One of the problems I think with modern GMing and role-playing, tabletop role-playing games, is a lot of people base what they expect on computer games. And let's face it, computer games of this genre are 90% combat and 10% role-playing, because that's the thing that you really get out of many of these games. There are obvious exceptions, and they say every generalization is untrue. But for the most part, people just expect there to be combat.
Yeah.
And that can be really detrimental when you sit people down at a table, particularly, D&D 5th edition. Again, it's not for me. I understand why people like it. I have nothing against anyone who does. It's not for me. I find the combat really a bit clunky. I just find it a bit painful that you can be a character and you're sat there in combat and you just get to do nothing repeatedly for 5 turns in a row because you rolled a 5, a 6, a 9, a 3, a 2, and you're just like, well,
I genuinely believe I played a lot of different games, and I genuinely believe everyone plays D&D for the same reason everyone had a DVD player, or if you're something like that, it's because it was first, it's because it was there, and it's great. Some people have only ever played D&D, they've never played. It's
funny you should say that. I've felt that for a very long time. I mean, ignore my games for a minute. I think my game's good, but it's up to everyone to make their own decision. There are so many
good ones,
so much better games out there than D&D. Yeah. The thing is that Hasbro has the money, and it will push it in your face. But I'm talking about modern D&D more than I am. Yes, it was there first, definitely. I'm not in any way saying it deserves to die out or anything like that. I'm just saying they push it in your face, and the way they market. I go to MCM Comic Con here in London quite often, and when I talk to people who know role playing games, they go, "Yeah, well, I saw D&D on Stranger Things, and that's obviously the only role playing game that exists." And I tried it, and I didn't really like it. So, I guess role playing's not for me. And
we see parallels in comics.
Yeah.
We see the parallels in comics. Folk can't see past the big two. A lot of people. It's the same discussion. Like most, even down to like we when we put on our own comic art fair last year in November, and one of the pieces of feedback we got was like, "There's not any superhero stuff here." Yeah. It is that it's I think that's the understanding of comics for a large portion of people. In the same way,
I run a standard at comics conventions. You don't have to tell me. People walk up and sort of flick through the box. Oh, is there no Spider-Man here? And I'm like, okay, I get it, right? You like Spider-Man. Do you want to try something else? Is there any space in your life for something other than the things? Superman is probably my favorite example of where they've really run out of ideas. Like they really have.
How often I sit here and talk about how the big two, Marvel and DC in particular, have not produced anything original in decades. They're just rehashing old things.
Yeah.
But like you said,
DC is
one
such
thing.
A good example. Sorry.
RPG. I spent a year trying to get people to play a game. My favorite game is a game called Spyhander.
I know it.
Yeah, and it's like a grim dark, much easier fantasy slice. Just a much better game, in my opinion. Less magic, modern, and just couldn't get it to take. They were always like, we're used to this game. Like, okay,
it's really a bit sad, isn't it? But it's the same way that you see. I don't know. Obviously, being in the board and card game space, you see the Batman Kickstarter that was the highest grossing board game on Kickstarter ever.
Yeah.
Because it's Batman, and if you can afford the Batman license, you definitely need a Kickstarter. 100%.
Big people doing Kickstarters annoy me a wee bit. Frank Cho did a Kickstarter for a comic a couple of years ago, and it's like it's Frank Cho, it's going to get published by Boom or whatever. You don't need to be kickstarting it, because Kickstarter, whether it's a game, I understand if you're kickstarting your games, but when you kickstart a game,
I mean, I'm
you're
tiny.
you're bypassing the shop.
Right.
So then if it goes to direct distribution and comes through Asmodee or something like that, and they say, "Oh, do you want to take this game?" I'm like, everyone I know who wanted that game
already has it from Kickstarter.
I mean, games occasionally myself, I must admit, but
so I do fund my games on Kickstarter, but I have in the region of 100 backers a time, not 200,000, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's the people who really are the early adopters. It's the people who want this game to happen rather than not happen, who then go, right, okay, you know what, I get it. Ed needs a little bit for artwork or for printing or whatever it is that I need the money for.
you
know what, I'll make that happen.
I back independent games. I back independent comics. But
and then you know, nothing in principle makes me happier than getting my games into shops. You know, in front of people who otherwise wouldn't have seen them, because it's quite difficult as an indie creator to even get into a shop because they turn you away. They just go, yeah, well, it's not role-playing games in particular. It's not Pathfinder. It's not D&D. It's not Star Wars: Edge of Empire. Therefore, it's not in my shop. Go away.
Yes,
that's the response I get very often.
Yeah, there's so much comes out. There's sometimes you can only afford to take in so many. You know, you can
totally understand
that. I've taken books in. Tales from the Loop started off as an RPG.
Yeah,
it was absolutely phenomenal. Or it started off as an art book by.
It did, yes, indeed.
By Simon Stalenhag, but yeah, it was the RPG, and it's a brilliant RPG. You know, I took in Kids on Bikes when it first came out. If you heard of that one, great game. And you know, but for every one of them, there'll be a Witcher one, which is Kickstarter and things like this, which sells 1 million copies.
I mean, I get very tired of licenses, in particular in the role-playing game space. It is just someone who has 40 to 100,000 pounds and is willing to spend it on a license so that they can make lots of sales. And for the most part,
are just reskins of very basic.
For the most part, they don't care. Like the people making them do not care. They don't make a good game. They don't even try to make a good game.
Even the biggest ones, you talked about Edge of Empire, these Star Wars games, there's currently 3 Star Wars RPGs. None of them are particularly good. They're all good at one thing, but none of them are good at everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I probably ought to talk about comics for a minute. You know, I'm just
okay,
I'm
we've done this, and the other 2 boys have been like.
I'm not either. Like I play 5th Ed. The issue I have, apart from Andrew, is that, and I think it's probably the other side of the coin with the conversation you're having about like trying to get a gaming, unless you like have a gaming club or that, or you're a regular attendee, trying to get folk to play RPGs with you is quite tricky, and so therefore like D&D is the one everyone knows, so it's the one that's like it's the easiest one to get folk.
Totally understand that.
It's the one everyone's playing on as well. So
I'll say to you, and I'll say to anyone watching, we run a server that is entirely devoted to playing games that are not D&D. As it happens, they are my games, but you know that's life. But anyone is welcome to come and play. Like anyone is welcome at our tables, virtual or indeed otherwise. But you know, if you want to try something other than D&D, check out a convention like Contingency, which is not a big trade hall. It's not a convention that's trying to sell you things. It's a convention about playing games and enjoying playing games. And there are literally hundreds of different games that are going on during that week that people can try. So definitely worth checking out. Then there's then obviously, and if you're not able to go or not able to physically attend, join our Discord, please. I'll hand you the link afterwards, actually, so you can share it in a comment or whatever works. But you know, join our Discord, play some games, try something that's not D&D. We run regular sessions, and everyone is welcome.
That's amazing, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's talk comics then. So, like, obviously,
let's talk comics. So, obviously, the comics. they came about. I said I was here to tell stories. Here's a story. A good friend now. He came on board to help me write the history, the 500 years of history, and build that framework for people to play. But in reality, he's a comic writer. He wrote for DC. He's done some other bits and pieces all over the place. On-screen animation, the works. And he came to me one day and he said, Ed, I need to write a comic. And I want to write a comic in your universe because it's good fun. Can I write a comic, please? So I was like, okay, sure, why not? Like, sure, let's do it. And this was very early days. This was actually before I'd actually finally published the first copy of my rulebook. We were still in sort of 0.7, 0.8 versions. So we write this comic, and we people in general seem to really like it. That we sell a few at conventions. I'm not talking about hundreds by any means. We sell a few dozen. And we go, yeah. You know what? Might be fun to make a few more. Make a couple more sci-fi comics. And then he says, Ed, I want to write a superhero comic. Can you make a superhero universe for me and make a role-playing game in it? So then we can write a comic. We can write some superhero comics. So I end up creating this superhero universe, which is the 5th anniversary rulebook for which is actually my 150th book that I have created and published. That's number 150. And I created this universe so that we could start writing superhero comics. We've written 23 so far. Many of them are sci-fi. The majority are superheroes. I've actually got one in the works right now that's a noir comic, which is based in one of my other universes. So everything I create sort of builds on itself. So if you're a comics fan and you like role-playing games, then you can go ahead and get into that's some of our superhero stuff there. Our website desperately needs updating, really, really badly needs updating. Lost Stand of Stiletto Unit is the one I was talking about a moment ago. That was the first one we wrote. This is Lacuna, which was the first superhero one we wrote. Over time that's grown into a number of different characters who each have their own arc. I adore taking a trope that you'll see everywhere and then putting my own spin on it. It's the way I write role-playing games as well. It's just the sort of my natural way I do things. Violet happens to be you can barely see her in that. She's mostly blocked out by the black part of that. Violet is is that going to work? Yeah, okay, that does at least work. Violet is my favorite character to write for because I always felt that there's a problem with the villain of the week setup, in that you fight a villain and then you're fine, and then you fight the next villain the next week. Violet, after this adventure, this first one, we've written 3 comics with Violet so far. She gets serious PTSD from fighting a lizard dude who can turn invisible and nearly clawed her to death. Like she's like, whoa, like I'm not right anymore. Like it's not. The opening of the second comic is one of the favorite things I've ever written, where she just says, "Look, I know that I'm not behaving the way I was before, and I don't know if I'm all right, but I remember reading somewhere that if you think you're crazy, you're probably okay. So I guess I'm fine." And it's a wonderful opportunity to sort of inject that reality that probably most people have had about something in their lifetime into a comic, and seeing how a person, because at the end of the day, and again, this is a problem I have with the big two. At the end of the day, every superhero is a person first. right? They're not the superhero first. They're the person first, and then they become the superhero for whatever reason. And while I think in some cases that can meld together, I mean, who doesn't love a bit of booster gold here and there? You know, it's funny, it's a bit of fun, and it's not very serious, but they miss the right, but the person. It's not the costume that happened first, and it's not the costume that defines their. Again, you know what? I might even give Batman a free pass on this, because they do in the animated stuff. They do go into, look, I'm not Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's a cover. I'm Batman, and also Bruce Wayne happens to exist, and that's the trauma that got him there. Okay, that's fair. They actually went in and they tried to make that a thing. I think in a lot of cases they don't bother, and it's just, oh yeah, well that hero's like this and can do these things, and that's fine, and it always feels so shallow to me. So, you know, I love to write characters who have reactions to the things that happen to them, that have problems as a result, that have a real life that really hurts when they not the Spider-Man thing so much of, oh, I'm gonna miss class because, but more the reality, because you aren't generally going to miss class because of being a superhero. You'll leave it to one of the others in New York in Marvel. Seriously, you'll leave it to one of the other 30 heroes that are in New York on that one occasion. Yeah, it starts to feel a bit unrealistic that one hero has to go solve every street crime.
Marvel occasionally get it right, and I think I agree with you. The type of characters sometimes that you get that have, I mean, problems and actual backgrounds and stuff like this. A couple of my favourites, Moon Knight, obviously everybody knows about now from the back of it. Some great written stuff over the last few years. There's a character called Phantom X, who's another favourite of mine. I think, a better than Deadpool character, a split personality. He's got multiple personality characters in his mind.
Absolutely.
As far as I'm aware, he's only had like a couple of series to himself, and then he appeared in it's either X Factor or X Force for a consistent length of time, and he was very good. But yeah, there's too much.
I mean, there are definitely occasions where they get it right, but I think too often
exceptions that they're just not.
Yeah, it's exceptions are DC doing Heroes in Crisis comes to mind as one where I thought, but then it was like, even then though, it was such an excellent concept of like superhero therapy, effectively, and like, you know, or superhero rehab.
Do you know what the massive problem with that one though, and it's DC do it all the time, is that to move the story along, John's heard me say this before, but they basically kill the ginger characters. Right? Yep. And that's when DC do it all the time. They either kill the ginger character or they make the ginger character black. They took, but Jimmy Olsen in the TV show, it's like he's no ginger anymore. We need somebody to die at the start of Heroes in Crisis. Okay, who's the most ginger character we've got out there? Was it Wally West or
Wally West? Yeah.
They just look around and go, right, which ginger can we kill? That's not moving that forward. It's just like,
I've never noticed that, but that's hilarious. Is Ted called Ginger? I forget.
Ted, I think he's blonde, isn't he?
Okay, well there you are. They killed off a non-ginger character there.
Yeah,
non-ginger character. The generally gingers that always get it.
So yeah, I mean, I like to write the stories my way, and I think a big part of that is that there was only one comic I grew up on, and I'm going to show my age in one direction or another at this point. It was Sonic the Comic. Which I adored. It was, and even going back, it was so well written for something that should have just been a money grab, like conventionally would have just been a money grab. But it was so well written for a kid's comic, and I was just enthralled for years and years. That really was my, until I started writing comics and doing it seriously and reading around it a bit more. That was my exposure to comics when I started, and I just wanted to do a story that I would want to read, you know, and too often. I think a lot of comic creators. I see this a lot because I'm quite active in the indie comic area, and I see other creators a lot, and they'll do. I think my favorite example is they'll do the Avengers, right? For their universe, they'll just go, right, here's issue 1, everyone teams up, and you're just going, whoa, 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 hold your horses there. I don't care about any of these characters yet because I've never met them. You're not going to make me care about 6 characters in 2 pages. It's not going to happen. So you need to take your time. You need to go slow. And people are afraid to do that because they don't know how many comics they will be able to create. And I completely understand, you know, as someone who's self-funded 23 comics now, I totally get it. You know, it's terrifying. I sat down, I wrote Lacuna with John. I designed Lacuna with John and then wrote it with Amy, another writer I've been working with for a long time. And John and I wrote Blue Shift, and then I wrote Violet with Jennifer. And we sat down before we started and we said, look, okay, if you want to have a team up, and eventually we do, you've got to have, you know, what did the MCU do going up to the first Avengers? Because they more or less got that right. They made you care about Iron Man with his own movie. They made you care about Hawkeye with a brief appearance in the Thor movie. People were already caring about Hawkeye. People had never even heard of the character because, let's face it, not that many people West Coast Avengers. Yeah, no. They worked hard to make you care about those characters, and then they teamed up to do a thing. Okay, well, I mean that's cool. That makes sense. I get it. Jumping straight in, if they'd just released Avengers and never done anything in the build-up, it would have flopped badly, I think. I firmly believe that. And I should say, Avengers is one of my favorite superhero movies ever.
Yeah. There was too many characters that mainstream people would never have heard of. Like everyone would have sort of known about Captain America, maybe to a lesser extent Iron Man or Thor. Outside of comic fans, like
I watched the 90s animated series, so I knew who Iron Man was. I knew who I knew vaguely who Thor was. I knew who the Hulk was. That was about it.
But Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow was really well introduced. She wasn't Black Widow in the first movie that she was in. It was one of the
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2. So they really fleshed her out before they even put her into the sort of costume.
Even the secondary characters who didn't get their own movie first, they put work in. I entirely agree with you.
They did all that right, like you say, and then with the DC Expanded Universe came along and tried to do something, they were just jumped straight in. Superman movie, right, let's do Justice League without really doing anything about it. I agree, but in movies in particular, they just didn't have the time or the money to do that anymore. I think Marvel have done that now, but as these movies have gotten more and more expensive, they need to do more every time now. So that's why everyone now is a flop.
I got to be honest, I sort of lost interest. I watched Infinity War, I watched Endgame. I didn't really want to sit down and watch all the TV series, so I sort of stopped around then, and I didn't think Endgame was a great movie. I thought it was like, kudos for using a stupid comic book plot to solve a stupid comic book problem. Fair enough. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Time travel through the Quantumverse is dumb, but fair enough. It's what a comic would do. Fair enough.
Since Crisis on Infinite Earths, that's what comic has been doing for 50 years. It's like we need to, or we have to explain why why these characters have been going for 70 years.
Absolutely.
So,
but yeah, I mean,
Endgame has. I think you can throw as much shade at Endgame as you want, but that fucking portal scene is like the best 3 minutes of any comic fan's existence. Like, it's the most.
And here's the thing: the problem was that I was quite disengaged with the movie by the time it happened, so I didn't really get the impact that they wanted me to have. Because and I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the very patronizing explanation of parallel worlds, and but there were good parts of that movie. The Black Widow versus Hawkeye fight. That was a good part of that movie. Hawkeye having gone nuts. I mean, I didn't particularly like the length of that scene that we had, but the concept of no, he's not there anymore. Just he losing his family has just completely ruined this guy. I really liked that, and I respected that they went there and delivered it pretty well. But then you for all of those you get Hulk can't do anything, or Doctor Strange is holding up the water, or it's like I don't even like Doctor Strange as a character, but it was just like, oh, I see, they're too powerful, so you have to get them out of the way. Captain Marvel, she's in space. Convenient.
It's a Professor X problem, eh? I've heard other podcasts talk about Professor Xing, and that's just the term that they use to describe Professor X is the most powerful human on the planet. He's just
so powerful, you have to keep him in a wheelchair and out the way.
You have to
call them all Omega level characters that they just if they were in so quite often they can't have them in certain stories, and they did in comics as well when they had Civil War.
They did it so nicely in the first X-Men movie. Mm-hmm. They really delivered Professor X and Magneto being in the action and involved. Like, there's the whole scene with the police, the mind control thing, and the Magneto doing all the bullets, and and you're just like, yeah, this works, it fits, and I don't feel like you needed to keep Professor X out the way for this movie to make sense. Mm-hmm. It delivered that. Again, had other problems in my opinion, but I look around and I sort of see these bits of what I would call really, really good thinking and good writing and delivery of characters that people really do genuinely love. And I've badmouthed quite a lot of Marvel and DC characters during this conversation. But anyone who's a fan of those characters has a reason they like those characters. And it's mostly not when they're written badly. It's mostly when they're written really well for those moments that really spoke to them, where someone just did it and did it well.
I wanted to, before we moved on, sorry, because I'm shit at finding ways to jump back in. You mentioned earlier like Sonic the comic and how well written it was, considering it should have been a cash grab. It was the main writing on the very first bulk Sonic comics was Nigel Kitching and Blue Stringer. Yeah. So it was proper. First edit was Richard Burton, who's a former Tharg. Yeah. And then Andy Diggle and Steve McManus took over as well. So they,
I mean, the team was just amazing, and like I say, that should have been a cash grab. Like today, that would be a cash grab, right? But back then, and harking back to the early to mid 90s, they actually hired good people and put some effort in, and they were also people who were already good, right? They weren't complete up and comers who had never done anything. They were already good.
Well, Steve McManus had been an editor on 2000 AD for years before he took over. So
I'm a wee bit older, and so's John. So we probably neither of us read that, but we would have had a very similar thing when we were growing up. I would say I would be like the Transformers comics, which could have been a cash grab, but they were so good. They came out in 1982, 1983, something like that.
I mean, even Transformers the movie, which is, let's face it, that is a toy advert.
86
How well written is that movie?
Amazing, yeah. And I loved those comics growing up. Like I say, I was too old by the time Sonic came around. But I always said, and John and Jeff will back me up here, when people come into my shop and say, like, I want to get into comics, what character do you want, do you think I should go to? The one piece of advice I always give everyone is, you didn't find a character you like, you find a writer that you like. A good writer will always write good stories, whereas a character can be written by anyone. So if you find your Brian Bendis, your Garth Ennis, your Alex Ross, or whoever is going to write the story.
Perhaps even your Ed Jowett, who knows?
Sorry?
I said perhaps even your Ed Jowett, who knows?
Oh, you're Ed Jowett. And another thing I'll say to Jeff something.
Writer name here. When you mentioned the writer name as well, Andrew, the first writer. This is Wikipedia's top of this. The first writer on Streets of Rage for the Sonic comics. So obviously it would have been like an anthology series.
Yeah.
You would have had like your Sonic, and then you would have had like
Sonic the Comic had Revenge of Shinobi, it had Streets of Rage. Yeah, who wrote it? I didn't notice.
Mark Miller.
And then when I was just watching Kingsman the other day, Mark Miller will write anything and put his name to anything, as I've always said. He's but as I've said this to Jeff as well, and again Jeff will back me up. Ed, you could be every comic out there is someone's favourite comic. It's someone, and every comic out there is someone's first comic.
Yeah, and that's something Stan Lee said once. I think that you know, every comic out there is someone's. Every comic will be someone's first comic.
Someone's first.
And Jonathan Lewis, I have to shout him out. I mentioned him earlier. Blue Shift, I wrote with him, but he's also the person who got me into writing comics, and he has been the shall we say the strict taskmaster to make sure that not only do I deliver, you know, good stories, but I also deliver good comics. And one of those things is exactly what you just said. It's going to be someone's first comic, and someone is going to not really know what the deal is with comics or understand it, but spend a couple of quid on it and go, yeah, you know what, I'll try it. Why not? And
because things work differently in different mediums. Like, see, people who can be really, really good writers of books, then they necessarily create good comics, and vice versa. You know, particularly when it comes to RPG games and stuff like this, the first RPG comics that came out were probably the Dragonlance ones from back in the sort of 1980s. And much as the books were great of them, and the setting was great, the comics were absolute dog shit. You know, they really, really were.
It's a lot of people don't understand what a cross-functional discipline writing really is. You know, it's different writing a movie from writing an audio, from writing a comic, from writing a role-playing game, and that's something obviously that's very close to my heart, having tried my hand at everything. I'm not going to claim that I'm the best writer you'll have ever read in every single medium. I'm not going to pretend that. What I try to do is write stories that speak to me, and I figure that if they speak to me, they'll speak to someone else out there. And actually, that's a really good opportunity for me to, if you don't mind, I'm gonna plug a project that I'm working on. I have not yet had it approved by Kickstarter, which is a bit sad. I was hoping to have it done by now, but it'll be coming very soon, and hopefully you'll be willing to share a link for me or something when it does come. But I run a project every year. It's called New Year, New Stories. And this started in COVID. And the reason I started is I have run, well, as of now, this will be my 90th Kickstarter that I've run. I've run quite a lot of Kickstarters. and a lot of creators don't know how or don't have the experience to do it or whatever.
It's difficult. We've done them yourselves. We know what it's like. Yeah.
It really is hard, and there's a knack to it.
Yeah.
So what I did is during COVID, 2020, it was so bad for indie comic creators. They couldn't get into shops because no one was going to shops. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do conventions. They couldn't make any sales. And so many people ground to a halt. And I just thought to myself in 2021, right, you know what? New year, new stories. Let's do this. So every there are in this book 10 stories by 10 different creators. They are all kinds of genres. They are all kinds of types of stories. Some are dark, some are light, and so on. This is something that we put on Kickstarter, and anyone who had published a story in the last 12 months was allowed to submit. And we split all of the profits that come in between the people who submit. So we print the book, and then the profits get split between everyone else. We did it that first year. It did moderately well. We did it a second year. Whoops, wrong way around. We did it a second year in 2022. We did it another year in 2023. We aren't in any way delivering lots and lots of money to anyone. Oh, sorry. Were you trying to? we aren't in any way delivering lots and lots of money to anyone. You know, it's about $60 to $100 per person who submits. But you know what? That's a few pages for a writer, or a few more days for an artist to have a little more time. And not only that, these do not have to be complete stories. It is 10 pages from a comic that either is in progress or was published in the last 12 months. And every creator who submits gets to have a links page to their other work. This is about helping you sample a few creators that you otherwise would probably never have heard of, and go and find the other work that they've done. If you like what they've done, it's what you were saying about, if you find your writer, they're going to write the way that you like. That's exactly what this project is all about. It's about helping people who want to read good stories find some things that people have done. And it's really just about helping.
I didn't do that for our anthology. Now that we put out an anthology last year and we didn't do that, and I'm annoyed I didn't think of a links page.
Yeah, we'll do it for the second anthology. We've got another one possibly coming next year.
That's really powerful, actually. Yeah.
It's because, let's face it, indie comics, for me, I think it's indie comics that are delivering that stuff that you were talking about, the Transformers comics, the Sonic the comics. I think that's what's delivering that story today, because too often now these things are just cash grabs. They're, that character's popular right now, let's do a Witcher comic, or Hawkeye. Let's do a Hawkeye comic because that last run of Hawkeye was really well received. So let's just do a Hawkeye comic. People buy it.
Again, I've been on this Marvel and DC in particular. If somebody's got a movie out or a TV show out, then that's the comics like that. Every favourite comic that I've done since I've started doing this the last 3 or 4 years, none of them has been Marvel, none of them have been DC. I think it's been Stray Dogs was my favourite a couple of years ago, which was an absolutely phenomenal thing. The Nice House on the Lake, was that last year? I think that was James Tinian's the year before. He's a big name, but it was a small. A smaller.
He's gone back that way though, hasn't he, James Tinian?
He's doing more sort of. They're not independents because he's not working for real small independents. It's smaller than Marvel and DC, but yeah.
His career is moved on to I think it happens for some of the bigger names, and some of the biggest names like James, where obviously he's still, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was overseeing the whole Bat family for a while there. I know Ram V's now taken over something, but certainly I think a lot of some of the the bigger names, they do start off creating stories, they then get picked up, and then maybe I don't know if it's just. I don't know if there is a negativity to it, but I think they maybe find themselves in a situation where they're actually, I'm limited to what I can do. Batman still has to go back to Wayne Manor at the end of the day, or at the end of the night, I should say. There still has to be an effective status quo within the property. So then you get James Tynion going back on to do things like the comic you mentioned, Andrew. I've pre-ordered Blue Book's coming out next week.
Mm-hmm.
His project, which is his Alien.
Oh yeah, Project.
It's like an anthology. So I think he's doing a different story every year, but it's like an anthology where he's looking at a different Blue Book case every year, which is quite exciting. So that's obviously what he's interested in.
Most of my favourite guys over the last few years have been guys who aren't really associated with the big ones, who do their own thing, and they can be widely different. You talked earlier on about Mark Miller, who like I say, he'll sell his stuff to anybody. But nobody can ever accuse him of not being original. I think every 6-issue run that he gets, he tries his hand and does something else. He's not a massive fan of Garth Ennis for similar reasons. He's never going to get, apart from the run on the Punisher, possibly for Marvel, he's never going to get picked up by one of the big two to do one because his work doesn't suit it. But most of his things now, that he doesn't do hugely long things like Preacher or The Boys are sort of small original pieces. Yeah. Like Rover Dead Charlie. I'll talk again about Rover Dead Charlie, which is one of my favourite comics of all time. So,
just that short 6-issue run of self-contained.
Most comics. No offense, Ed, if you've got a comic that's 150 issues in or something like that, but most stories, particularly in common, I think is need a 6-issue run, right? And it's the same as I feel like about TV shows. You know, there's two or three seasons of 8 to 10 episodes is much better than, you know, like a Supernatural or something like that does 10 seasons of 22 episodes. You're just not keeping the story tight. The longer it is, and if you're doing a run of 30 issues or something like that, the story doesn't need to be 30 issues. No story needs to be 30 issues. You know,
I mean, actually, the longest run that we've done so far is 3.
Yeah, that's it. Keep it. Three's perfect. That's going to.
I think 3's overstating it. It's really 2 and then another story.
Yeah. That'll give you 70 to 100 pages, which will give you a nice. I'll give you a nice bound one at the end. Yeah. So yeah, 3 issues is perfect.
Yeah, who's going to try and write anything more than 3 issues and get stuck after 5 years?
Well, that's it. When Spirit of NK4 coming out? That's the question.
It's coming. Yeah, but no, man, Ed, it's been so nice having you. So hopefully your Kickstarter will launch in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally just waiting for Kickstarter to say yes. They were supposed to give me a response yesterday, and it just still says you'll get a response by the 3rd of January. So, I did actually message them, and they apologized. They said, we're busy right now, and we'll do it when we can. Oh, it's just been accepted.
Woo!
I can launch it live if you want.
Share the link in the banner. Share the link in the private chat, and we'll get it up.
Share the link, and we'll put the link into it if you're going live, or when you go live, we will.
No. I mean, like literally, I've got all of the guys, and they're all just waiting. I've just gone live.
Go live. Yeah, put the link in the chat.
I'm just putting a link. Hang on.
Drop us a link in the channel. We'll get up. That's really exciting, man. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We're not asking for the Earth. We're going for $300 so that we can print it. Anything beyond that goes straight into the hands of the creators, and it's split by, it's split by who's submitted how many pages.
That's quite interesting to hear that. That's how you do. That's how I do my Kickstarters. Also, we spend quite a lot of time on the show talking about the Kickstarter, like how different creators Kickstarter. I mean, I just do my Kickstarters are just for covering printing.
You cover the print costs, and then anything else you get is better. I mean, like I said, this is my 90th Kickstarter. I've funded all but 4 of them, and 3 of those 4 were cancelled for other reasons. And the truth is that I think that you should more or less have finished the thing before you go to Kickstarter. Like even if it's taken you years to do as a result of just putting a little aside every month or whatever, I think failing to deliver a Kickstarter is possibly the worst thing you can do, not only for yourself, but also for everybody else who relies on Kickstarter.
Failing to deliver a Kickstarter and saying that it's for charity, and then keeping the
I'm calling that a failure to deliver. It's you can do a lot of terrible things if you want to be a dick.
Yeah. So we're quarantined.
But I believe in this project. I believe in indie creators, and maybe the next Mark Miller is in there, and we just don't know it yet because these days there's no real opportunity to see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've read them. I enjoy some of them. I think others are, me personally, they're not for me. But I want people to have the opportunity, and there's the first backer there. I want people to have the opportunity. That's my very self-indulgent logo there, which is just fun.
It's very professional.
Self-indulgent. That's exciting. That's. Do you want to talk us through before we let you go? Do you want to talk us through what we're looking at? What we would expect?
Yeah. So this is, as I said, it's an anthology. Everyone who submits, it must be within the last 12 months, and you get to submit 10 pages. That's it. So, choose your 10 pages wisely, as it were. It can be black and white or in color. This is actually one of mine that's currently underway. The colors haven't been completed yet on that previous one we just saw. So I thought, no, you know what? It's a good story. Let's put it out there. And they're all different kinds of creators. You'll see the art styles vary massively from the more, what I'd say, sort of older feel, like these two, all the way through to the very much more modern styles. Some people do CGI sort of style. They are just 10 stories that are supposed to entertain you or amuse you or move you, or maybe they're epic, or maybe they're exciting. Maybe they're exploring a world that's interesting and the person's not so great at dialogue, but the world's really interesting, or whatever it is. And this is DB Amarando, a good friend who submitted every year. We just wanted to give anyone who wants it a platform to say, here's my story. If you like it, you can find more there. That's what this is all about. It's about a rising tide raises all ships. It's about people seeing what can exist on, sometimes on an absolute shoestring budget. And sometimes they're they've got really. I mean, I love the artwork style on that one. So you see all kinds of different things, different characters. Different creators, I should say. Submit different characters, different years. Sometimes they do really enjoy doing. My brain has stopped. Sorry. So sometimes they really enjoy sci-fi, and then the next year they'll do fantasy, and then the year after they'll do sci-fi again. That one again that was just fading out, the black and white one. That's a creator who submitted all 4 years now. So yeah, as I say, it's all about. Oh wow, we're already 1/3 funded. That's amazing.
Fantastic.
It's all about getting people the opportunity to see what other people can do, what people you've never heard of, what the big names who won't, even if they're doing something small, they'll still attract an audience because they're like you say, they're known writers and you like their work. These are the people who you probably haven't heard of. And there are some in there which are just absolutely brilliant. And not all of them are mine. Although I am very proud of some of the stories I've written in here. I think Fauna 2, which is the black and white one that's still underway. It will be in color eventually, but I'm very happy with the way that one's turned out. It's a good story, and I'm very, very happy with it. So yeah.
You got a couple of backers already, so it looks like hopefully you shouldn't have any problem getting it back quickly. And
I'm hoping not. I don't see any reason why there should be a problem. It's definitely yeah. It's definitely something that I like to run it in January. It's not a big Kickstarter month. It's not gonna shoot the moon and go for millions of dollars. I doubt very much. But it's a good opportunity for people who want to start a new year by seeing some new stories, finding some new writers, and thinking about what other talent is out there that you maybe, as I say, you didn't hear of.
Yeah. Cool. Well, all the best for it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for achieving
so I will put your link, all the links up for.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, we'll keep in touch, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
I would absolutely love to come back sometime. You three have been great fun to talk to. I'm sorry for talking your ear off. I'm I did warn you before we started that I'm a talker.
It was fine for me because I'm also into RPGs and TTRPGs and things and stuff like this. I think I had a better time than maybe like the non-gamers.
I'm just here for the banner. Love it, man. Okay, man. Look after yourself, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks so much to Ed Jowett for joining us. Amazing. It's so cool. I love when we have a guest on that's got a live Kickstarter. I love watching the fact that it's doing so well so quickly. But like we have had guests on the past where like their Kickstarter's been live, and I have just been like clicking refresh constantly.
He's already a third of the way, I think, towards the goal. So. It's good.
And he was totally right as well. What he was saying about like Kickstarters. I've been very lucky in that, like, including the Brewgooders anthology. Like, all my Kickstarters have been successful. But like, I'm looking for, I've always looked for total tiny amounts of money. It's such a challenging, it's such a challenging thing to do as a Kickstarter, and like you can tell a good Kickstarter from a bad one.
I've always said the same. I think I'm good at all facets of it, up to the point that the Kickstarter, I can think of creation. I'm just no good at pushing my own thing. I can't. The best Kickstarters are guys who are like constantly posting, "This is my book. Come and buy my book. Have you seen my book? My book's coming out. Come get my book." And didn't mind spamming their friends and family and stuff like that.
That was something I really struggled with when we were doing the. I don't mind that being an issue with my kicks. Like, obviously, if I'm doing Spirit of Enki or Jeff of the Juniors or anything else like that, I don't mind not being obviously I set the target low. I've got enough. There's enough folk that like seem to quite like my stuff that I will always hit that wee target. But when we did the anthology, that was one of the things I found really, really hard. Was like, actually, this isn't just about me now. If the anthology, if Spirit of Enki fails, Jordan's already got his money. I've had somebody doing coloring or lettering, they've already had their money paid. The only person that ultimately suffers if a Spirit of Enki or if a Jeff of the Juniors doesn't get funded is me, because that the last stage is getting me the money so I can print it. Whereas the anthology was fucking stressful because it was all about for me it was and that was a big learning curve for me. So obviously we're talking about doing an anthology this year, and it's gonna be obviously a much more professionally stream run thing because Kickstarter is hard. There's an art to it, but obviously it was all about representing other creators, not just myself, when we did the anthology, and that was really tricky. Like that sort of working with others, which I love doing, was definitely the
having to corral them all. You were kind of. You were the guy who was organising everything. You were speaking to everybody. You were working on, you worked on the contract for it. You worked on putting it together, doing everything.
I have found in comics, and don't get me wrong, I have found in comics, and this is sort of we talked about this very briefly when we were talking about the comic art fair as well. Is actually what I like about working with comic creators is they're much more organised than say I'm the member of my group that organises the Christmas party or organises the 5-a-side football team or organises the stag do and stuff like that. And it is like herding cats, Whereas I haven't had that issue in comics. When with the anthology, when I was obviously trying to corral a lot of the stuff. The most challenging aspect of that was trying to support creators who were struggling with confidence, actually, more than anything. A couple of creators who, on the anthology, ended up creating amazing pieces of work that were stressing to fuck. They're like, "Oh my god, is this good enough?" I'm like, "Man, it's immense. Don't worry about it." But okay, so what? We've only got about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes. So I love this podcast every year because it's the one where we talk about what we've been up to, and the 2 weeks off, and we get that wee bit more TV time than we normally have.
We're talking about our TV highlights for the Christmas and New Year period.
I get less TV time. I get less TV time over Christmas. So, yeah. I've not watched much at all. Doctor Who, for me, that was about it. And Reacher Season 2 on Prime Video.
I tend not to watch programmes until all episodes are up, so I've not watched any of Reacher yet, because I'm waiting for it all coming up. Don't know what's happened to David. What did you think about Doctor Who, though? I mean, I was like, there were parts I was not, like... I know that the Disneyfication is a wee bit, inevitable, but I didn't want them breaking into song in the middle of an episode, and also spoilers, by the way, if anybody's watching this. I just felt like the way they resolved it at the end with the Doctor spearing the thing, using a church to spear the monster, isn't really Doctor Who? I just thought he could have come up with something a little bit more cerebral. What do you think?
It's one of these things that obviously, because Disney are pumping money into it now, that they're trying to justify the budget. So they've got to have these big kind of set action pieces. And they're trying to get Doctor Who out there to a broader audience. So I think perhaps that they're trying just like to hedge their bets and go, okay, the Doctor doesn't normally do this, but he's going to do it just this once.
I don't mind on the rooftops. I don't mind there being a slightly more athletic Doctor Who. I just think the final moment wasn't that for me. I thought it led up to it. Obviously, it didn't stand on its own. Since the last time we've been on, there was 3 specials of varying quality as well. And I thought the middle one in particular is more what I liked as Doctor Who. The one that was set on the spaceship.
Yes.
Was very good, and that's the kind of more what I want from it.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. That's the good thing about Doctor Who, is that you can do so many things with it. You can have a bottle episode set on a ship, and it'll be fantastic. And then you can have another episode where the big explosions and they're running from things and the music's bombastic. That's my favorite Doctor Who. Where it's just like going nuts.
I like the big RTD bombast. Like there's a very specific RTD written episode, which I think the last 2 episodes in particular have kind of led into. Is that like you say, the running and the explosions and shit? But
yeah, I mean that's the kind of. But then obviously Russell T Davies, he brings in that kind of. Really, like for me, it was the Spice Girls moment on the special. I was like, what the hell? Which obviously harkened back to the Master on Doctor Who when it was John Sim, and it was the big pop music that came on, but it was like beasties that were killing people. I was like, what the hell, man? That was unexpected.
Like say, he also did like. For season 1 season 2 for David Tennant, he did Blink, which again as a bottle episode, I think was it Blink? Yeah, I think was the best episode of that era. That's a Stephen Moffat episode, I think. And it can be all things to all men, but too much of the silliness does tend to thing me away. So I didn't want dancing gnomes and singing to them. And
I think it's a balance. I think this is Doctor Who's problem always. Like I love the Russell T Davies era of 2005 to like 2009 or whatever it was. I absolutely loved it. But then like my favorite episodes in them are your Paul Cornell's and your Stephen Moffat episodes, because they are tonally different. So like I love Family Nature, the Family of Blood, and Human Nature.
I love when he's lost his memory and stuff like this.
I love Blink, obviously. I love the one the bottle episode when they're like going through all the different. It's the Madame de Pompadour episode.
Oh, the
Girl in the Fireplace.
Girl in the Fireplace. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
They've all got like I think that's the Stephen Moffat, and I think
that was
Blink and then Paul Cornell's the Family Blood one. Amazing, but then I think what Doctor Who then does is like it gives like I think they made the mistake of giving Stephen Moffat the whole thing. So obviously you got that really intriguing episode every week, and then that became a bit different. And then your Chris Chibnall one-offs were quite good, and then so they were we'll make him the new showrunner, and I think it becomes too much. I think Doctor Who's at the best when you get like your up downs, you know.
Stephen Moffat, I think when he was writing, I think because he did Sherlock as well with Mark Gatiss, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mark Gatiss, in fact, all of the League of Gentlemen, I think are phenomenal. I just want more of that, more Sherlockish type, more cerebral.
I watched them. Well, this was talking about what we watched.
That's why I loved Matt Smith. Sorry, I was going to say this, but that's why I loved Matt Smith above David Tennant. David Tennant was great at the explosions and running and things like this. Matt Smith didn't really do that.
He was good at pathos.
He more pottered about and used his sort of brain.
And I think if you're looking for something that's a bit Sherlocky in that, I watched over Christmas. It came out last year. It's about it's got David. It's a Stephen Moffat program. It's written by Dave Tennant called it's on Netflix. Let me find out what it's called. But that was one of my things about.
But when we find out, I'll say my highlight of my Christmas very much similar to last year when it was a Christmas special for a show that I really loved. And I was a bit underwhelmed last year with the one, but this year it was Ghosts. They did the final ever episode of Ghosts, and they definitely ended it. It's not like they're not going to come back in 2 years and say, we're not getting a job or anything like that. The way they did the story, it's done, and it was so well written. Every episode of that show was so well written. I've been trying to watch the American version just because I'm pining for it, but it's just not the same. So
the program I was on was called Inside Man, which has Dave Tennant as a priest. As a vicar. It's written by Stephen Moffat.
I watched that. Aye, that was it was like a 3 episode Stanley Tucci.
Yeah.
It's good. I watched that over the holidays. Enjoyed that. I know that came out ages ago.
I kind of thought they were going to do a second season of that. No, with David Tennant, but with Stanley Tucci's character. There's his character's got a lot more, and he's like a Sherlock Holmes-esque type character. The guy in prison. Aye, so.
I'm Ghosts is on my list because I can hand on heart and be quite disappointed with myself. I've never seen an episode of Ghosts, but you guys always talk about how good it is.
I'm 3 seasons in, and it's really, really funny. Even when an episode isn't particularly good, there's always one outstanding character moment. Even depending on what character it is, there's always something that hooks you to an episode, and the performances from the actors are outstanding. It's hilarious.
Jim Howitt makes me laugh in absolutely every single thing he's ever done. He's amazing, and the guys, I think they've all worked together for years, so they all did Horrible Histories and things like that together. And so they're all really comfortable with each other and as a writing group, and it's phenomenal, man. It's really, really good.
So yeah, I'll definitely be going back to watch the last 2 seasons. So looking forward to watching that again. What I have been binging, though, bizarrely enough, is Taskmaster. You ever watched Taskmaster with Greg Davies?
It's one of those ones
I've never watched it before, but you always see the little clips appear in people's reels, and I'm like, that was quite funny. So they dropped 6 seasons. 6 seasons on Netflix dropped. And I'm like, right, okay. And then I watch a season, and I'm like, oh, I'm sad that there's new people coming in. And then I enjoy all those people. And I'm like, oh, I'm sad they're leaving. And then there's like 5 other new people coming in. It's a lot of fun.
Every year there's one person that's just like makes it for me. It's like Bob Mortimer did a year, and he's a funny guy.
Bob Mortimer was incredible in his year.
Yeah, and Jack D. Hi, Jack D did a series, and he was brilliant.
Because of the Bob Mortimer. Sorry.
Bob Mortimer's amazing.
Because of that, and early last year, I went and bought like a big pile of sort of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer DVDs. Yeah. Been working my way through those, and somebody has put upscaled episodes of Shooting Stars on YouTube. So I've been watching a load of these where I've been sitting drawing upscaled HD episodes of Shooting Stars, and it's just amazing. So good.
He was, for his season, he was amazing.
So while I haven't seen much TV programs, I've kind of had when I've had a bit of time to myself when I've been drawing, I've been streaming these while I've been drawing at the same time. So yeah, those are good. But yeah,
Alex Horn, I think, is the guy. He comes up with all the things, and he's the he's the brains behind the entire show. And I love it. Occasionally, they'll just fuck with one of the guys by making them do something, but they'll not realise that nobody else is.
Making a task for them.
Yeah.
The secret.
So I'm thoroughly enjoying that. So I've discovered that the E4 app has the other like 10 seasons or however many seasons. So
all the specials are good as well. They do one-off specials where they meet, instead of bringing in like comedians, they'll just bring in actors and actresses as well, or you know, as I say, like instead of comedians, they'll bring in people that are maybe not associated with comedy instead of and they'll do them as like a one-off New Year special or stuff, and those are really funny as well because you get to see like alternative sides to it. And also just things like you're introduced to people. Like I watched 3 seasons of what was that called? Oh, the program that's got Jessica. Is it Jessica Neppett? Is that how you say her name? She's in a season of Taskmaster, and she's in a couple of comedies. She was in the In-Betweeners movie and a bunch of other stuff. But like and then Gus Kahn, who does Man Like the Bean. I thought his season of Taskmasters was funny. I was like,
I'll think of that. Man, I seen Rose Matafeo, and that was the first thing I'd seen her in anything, and watched her in the season of Taskmaster, and then went to watch. She does a show where she accidentally gets involved with like the most successful actor in the world. Totally. And that's the only thing I've ever seen her in, and I was like, oh, she's really, really good.
It's Aislinn B as well, who does she's in a season.
Oh yeah.
And she's got a series called This Way Up or This Side Up. That's incredible. Where it's just just that where you're like, oh, I'm going to check out. These guys are funny.
It's a great show to have on in the background. See if you, I used to be a thing where if I was like depressed by the world, which you get a lot these days because it's rubbish. And you can sit on at 6 o'clock. You can either watch the BBC News and be even more depressed, or you can get yourself over to Dave. And usually, for a while, anyway, for 6 months this year, it was Taskmaster at 6 o'clock. And Joe Wilkinson was on it, and Joe Wilkinson's never did anything that didn't make me laugh. He's just one of those guys that just
legend.
Every time I see him in everything, he's amazing.
So YouTube is a bit of an escape for me, and then a bit of Netflix, and then the schools are back. I'll be getting back to it. So Rebel Moon was on my list, even though people generally will either
nothing wrong with that. See if that had been actually made as a Star Wars movie as it was originally envisaged. See if they went, we'll get it, and it had been in the Star Wars universe and stuff like this, they'd be fucking raving about it. People are just butthurt and stuff like this. I thought it was excellent. I really liked it. It wasn't original. So, that's fine.
Well, that was argument we had in the group chat, and I was like, you could say that about everything. It's just because it's popular to shit on this. That's why we're not like that's it's trendy to shit on this film because actually everything's a copy of everything.
I liked it, and people are like, it's just a typical Snyder movie, and stuff like that. Yeah. And I look back and I think, Sucker Punch. I liked Watchmen. I liked Superman. I like just everything the guy
Snyder Cut. Awesome.
Snyder Cut was awesome, and it had lens flares and it had. Slow motion. It had all sorts of things, man. Yeah, I like it. I'm busted. Coming.
In terms of critical analysis, that was the one thing. The slow motion annoyed me a wee bit. That's probably my only complaint about Rebel Moon. Is like there was a couple of action scenes where it's like, no, I want this just to go. I want this to be paced normally. I can't be arsed.
I want you to enjoy the spectacle. I think it would have been good to see on a large screen. Just enjoy the spectacle. And that's why
so
for the
it's on my list to watch. I'm not paying attention to any reviews. I'm going to watch it. So
watch it.
So probably beginning of next week, hopefully. Yeah.
Another thing I'm halfway doing because it's finished now, and it's one of my favourite shows on TV. If you've not got Apple, you might have never seen it. There's a show called Slow Horses.
I've got Apple now. Yeah, so Gary Oldman. Yeah, it's on my list as well. Yeah,
Gary Oldman as Jackson Lamb. It's just phenomenal. 3 seasons in. The quality never dips. It's one of those shows. It's a great show.
I've been watching this week The Righteous Gemstones. Has anyone seen that?
Yeah, that's the guy Feastbound in town.
Yeah, on my Danny McBride.
Yeah,
Oh, the Amber Bride, yeah. Okay.
they've got their own. They've got their own
They're
religion.
the world's biggest televangelist family, but they're all corrupt. It's fucking brilliant. It's just
That's
very
funny.
funny.
Again, is another one.
Danny McBride is the same character in everything he's in.
Yeah.
And but he's a very funny character. And I love it. What was it, man? Like, what was it, man? The one you mentioned there. What was
Eastbound and Down.
Eastbound and Down.
I watched that. I binged that during lockdown. I've never heard of it before, and I've seen, and I was just going to give this a go, and it's just hilarious.
He does.
Yeah.
He's in that movie that's it's no the end of the world. It's like the Edgar Wright one, The End of the World, where it's the best set in Hollywood, where the world's ending, and all these Seth Rogen and
This is the end. Yeah.
This is the end. Is that kind of something like that? They're all stuck in a house, and he's there. Everybody thinks he's a wank, and Scott Pilgrim is there. Michael Cera's there as well. He's a bit of a tosser as well, but he's brilliant in that as well. So
good stuff.
And I tell you what I could. Rachel Simpson's good. I tell you what I did watch, and it's a really old film, and I watched it because I was listening to a podcast, and this is probably the last thing. Like, I know we're trying to wrap up time before we need to get away. I watched The Room. Has anyone seen The Room yet?
No.
I
know what it is. It's the Tommy Wiseau film, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, no. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I tried it.
As bad as you say, is it that?
Oh, it's dreadful, man. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. But I can understand now because it's got like a Rocky Horror Picture Show-esque cult following to it.
Yeah, people get together to watch it in cinemas, don't they? So they can laugh at it.
Yeah. It's got midnight screening in LA like every night or something. And there is some reason, but it's a bit like his acting is just so awful, and it's the bit that everyone's seen. But like I burst out laughing when it happened. He comes in, he's like, "I did not hit her. I did not hit her. This is bullshit." Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. That's the only bit I know is that. Oh, hi, Mark, because it's thingy done to all sorts of things all over the place.
There's apparently we need to get right. There's a drinking game for it as well, and that you're supposed to There's a drinking game where the rules are like anytime somebody says "oh hi," because it happens all the time. Anytime somebody just walks into a room, because there's a lot of folks just walking into like his house predominantly, whereas like no one knocks on his door. It's just folks can't come in, and there's like the stage direction and the scenes are non-existent. So like they'll be in the middle of a scene and somebody will come in from the kitchen, and they're like, and you're like, were they there the whole time? Were they not? It's just really, it's funny because it's so bad. But like, yeah.
I probably won't watch it. I'll be honest with you. I'll take your word for it.
It's so awkward and it is brutal and it is quite sometimes like it is very cringy. Like I watched it a few times. Like, oh, actually, I'm going to turn this off now, and then something very funny will happen. But like, I think, it's like it's the thinking man's Rocky Horror Picture Show in terms of badness. Like it's
I think we've all got our worst film we've ever watched. That's I didn't want it to replace for me the one where the world ends and the only person that could have stopped it was Nicolas Cage because the trees were going to get him.
The following the knowing
that is no. There's worse. Have you seen The Happening with Mark Wahlberg?
Oh,
I know.
Talking to trees.
That one as well.
Hey, Mr. Tree, don't kill me.
M. Night Shyamalan had lost at the end of it. It was like, what's the twist got to be? It's the trees. You've lost it, M. Night. That's why he's never made a movie since.
But he's made loads since.
No, that I've seen. As far as I'm concerned.
No, he's done loads for you. He's done.
Okay. I suppose he did Glass.
He's done loads and loads.
Split, Glass, Old, The Visit, a lot of things. Yeah.
The one on the beach with the age.
Yeah, Old. Yeah.
He did Glass.
Yeah.
Right. Is that done? I've got time for one more story.
Tight this year. That's going to be our mantra this year. Keep it tight. 9 minutes.
Tight.
Keep it tight. Keep it tight.
Keep it tight.
Well, can I just finish up? I went and got a tattoo last month. This is my last story of the night, right? Went and got a tattoo last month. Mark.
Is it somewhere tight?
No, it wasn't. It's somewhere. It's here. Oh, that's. I got a Doctor Who tattoo. I should have kept this in the Doctor Who
Oh,
chat. I've got a Doctor Who tattoo on my arm, designed and where did I get this one? Just designed and drawn by Mark Cruncher.
oh yeah.
So it's not finished, so I'm not going to show you the bottom. But so our friend Mark, who is was at he was at the comic fair.
Yeah.
I went up there. So, but he's a really cool art studio. Everyone should, if you're going to get a tattoo, go to the Temple Studio and Art Studio in Broughty Ferry and near Dundee. A really, really cool studio. But then his boss, who was working in the area next to us, was like, we're chatting about tattoos, or chatting about like what the guy next to me was getting this really fucking cool Mandalorian tattoo, actually. So we had the Mandalorian soundtrack on for a while, and then he was asking me about Doctor Who, and he's like, I've never seen it, blah blah blah. And then he was like, I'm going to put some. Well, I'll put some Doctor Who on. I was like the soundtrack on. I was like, no, you don't have to. But he was like, I'll put it on. He's like, is the music in the film quite good? Is the program quite good? I'm like, yeah. It's like you get the BBC orchestra and that. So I think he just clicked on YouTube and put on a fucking random playlist. First song that comes out, "Spice Up Your Life" by the Spice Girls, really loudly,
Whoa.
and then this really macho like guys with big like arm tattoos, and I'm like. I put on everything. He's my request, and it's fucking "Spice Up Your Life" by the Spice Girls.
Never go back, mate. Never go back.
I want all my cool points. Any cool points I possibly have.
Oh God.
Okay. That's Jonathan saying Happy New Year. Happy New Year, pal. We'll catch up with you sometime this year. I'm out of stories. I know you wanted to keep it tight, but I wanted to tell that story now. So join us next week. More guests, more banter. And thank you so much for being on. Thank you for so much again, John. Thank you so much again, Andrew.
No problem. We'll see you again next week.
Okay. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.